Welcome. I'm Jared. I've thought a lot about getting into creating things for YouTube or anywhere else on the internet. And I've wanted to do that for a long time because I get a lot of value out of YouTube. And I send a lot of my students to YouTube when they want to learn new things. And I feel like it would be good to participate in that. So that's what this is. There are a million channels, probably not a million. There are a lot of channels that teach the fundamentals of photography, and they're fine. I mean, they're great. There are lots of them that are fantastic. And I don't know, there's an argument to be made that there's no need for another channel that talks about the fundamentals of photography. But this past year, I have spent a lot of time learning to garden. And the main way that I have improved my understanding and just my confidence in being able to garden is the many YouTubers that I have watched and learned from. And I'm so thankful that none of them thought, well, they probably thought it, but none of them were held back by the idea that there are already a bunch of gardening channels. Because there are a bunch of gardening channels, and the ones that appeal to me aren't necessarily the ones that are going to appeal to everyone else. So this is yet another Fundamentals of Photography series. In this series, I'm going to run down the things that I think are important to know as you're, developing an interest in photography. If you'd like to be better at taking photographs, we're going to talk about why to photograph, as well as how to photograph. And we're going to talk about some of the different aspects of photography as they make sense to me. And I'll share my work with you on this channel, and if my work is something that speaks to you, then probably the thoughts that I have on how I create things will speak to you as well. And so that's the idea. Let's get to it. Okay, so sorry if you found the mosquito on my forehead distracting in the intro there. At least for now, I've decided not to reshoot it. It is what it is. But I have moved locations. You probably noticed that. You're pretty sure. So yeah, hopefully there are fewer mosquitoes over here. I don't really mind mosquitoes all that much, if I'm honest. The bugs on a person's head in a YouTube video is probably not ideal. So why photography? I think it's important as part of anyone's life to have a means of artistic expression. And as I get older, I don't think the medium matters at all. I think whatever medium speaks to you is the right medium. And I think it's okay not to specialize in one medium. I also love to play music. I write songs, and that is another outlet for me for artistic expression. I also like to write. I write fiction and nonfiction, and that is another means of expression for me. I like to paint. I don't think you have to just pick one. But photography for me is, it's one that I've been doing since I was a child. My mom put my first camera in my hand when I was about 8, I want to say. And at some point, I bet I was 12. She gave me a low-level professional, but it was close to professional quality film camera, and just told me to go at it. And so I have years and years and years of experience making photographs, and it's been something that has brought me a lot of joy and satisfaction for many years. So as a result, I have a lot of thoughts as to how to create the images that you want. The beautiful thing now is that most of us have a camera with us in our pockets at all times. And while there are things that you can't really do with your phone camera. Um, you can do most of it. And so in this series, I'm going to focus a lot on techniques that can be used with any kind of camera. The camera that you have on your phone is probably better than the camera I used until very recently. The camera that I'm using to talk to you here is the nicest camera I've ever had, and it does things that no camera I've ever had can do. I have options now as a photographer that I never had before. It allows a quality that I couldn't accomplish with my phone, which is why I got it. But you can do all the things that we're going to talk about in this series with any camera. If you enjoy old style cameras and you want to get like a Holga or any other kind of thing, or if you like shooting with film, all of these things that I'm going to talk about are going to be relevant. But if the only camera you own is your phone, you can still take great photographs with your phone. And so that's how I'm going to approach this. I'm going to consider that all you have is a phone, and I'll probably throw out from time to time, if you had more options with your camera, here's what you would do with it. But I want you to know that you can shoot good photos with your phone. And you can shoot things that allow you to express yourself artistically with your phone. And there's something really beautiful about that. That I think more than anything, it changes how you see the world. If you have a camera with you and you are attempting to find something worth capturing, you are far more likely to see something worth capturing, if that makes any sense. It is so easy to go through our day somewhat mindless, right? You can be on autopilot, just kind of go from place to place to place to place and not really notice the subtleties, not really notice the small, beautiful things that are in our everyday life, not noticing any of those light patterns, or just little moments that happen every day, all around us. And I have found in my own life that when I am in a period of time where I am looking to capture things with my camera, I see more things that are worth capturing. And that significantly improves the quality of my day. So that's piece number one. That you want to have a means of artistic expression, and you probably have a camera in your pocket. Or you're watching me on your camera. Right? So photography is one that is endlessly available to you. It's a thing that you can do. And it's not necessarily the greatest medium. I actually think painting is a cooler medium, but I'm not very good at it. I'm better at photography than I am at painting. But yeah, if photography is a medium that is meaningful to you, then it's a means of changing the way you see the world. And that's invaluable. 2, photography is a way that you can share your perspective on life with other people. As a simple example, I have for years loved dandelions. And over the years I've met more and more people. It's become more common lately for people to agree with me that there is beauty in dandelions. But for a while I felt like I was, talking in the wilderness with no one to hear, because everyone I interacted with thought that dandelions were a pest and that they were problematic and they needed to be removed by any means necessary. And what photography allowed me to do was to show the world, show the people who saw my images what dandelions looked like to me. And so my camera allowed me to capture the way I look at dandelions, and to be able to share why I think dandelions are beautiful in a way that did not need to involve words, did not need to involve explanation. I didn't have to have an argument for it. It's just, here it is. And, some people agree that it's beautiful, some people don't, and that's fine. I've had a lot of people tell me that, I really like your dandelion photographs, but I still kill them in my yard. So, it is what it is. But to me, it's an interesting question. What is the difference between a weed and a wildflower? Because people like wildflowers, right? But dandelions are somehow considered a weed by a lot of people, and they kill them on purpose. And I raise that question just by the photograph I take. And you can do that with any subject. Anything that you shoot, you can show your perspective on that thing in a way that other people might not have seen. Grasslands are another thing that I've done that with. I grew up in the Flint Hills of Kansas, and it's beautiful there. And some people don't know that. Even some people who live there don't know that. They just talk about how they'd rather be somewhere else. I think a lot of people in a lot of places feel that way. But my camera allowed me to explain in a way that words never could what it is that I love about the Flint Hills, right? And so I was able to share with people around the world my images of Flint Hills and to change their perspective on what is Kansas, or at least to add to their perspective of what is Kansas. Okay, so next what I'd like to talk about is some of the underlying fundamental principles of how to improve as a photographer. The rest of the series is going to consist of episodes that are tied to specific strategies, ideas, skills, however you want to conceptualize it. But there will be an episode on how to compose your images. There will be an episode that talks about, for instance, how did I get the background of this shot to be blurry and I'm in focus, and why I chose to do that. And there are multiple. I have multiple topics coming. But for this video, I wanted to include just some foundational ways to improve your craft. And so I'd like to do that now. The first and most, I've got a list down there. The first and most important thing is to shoot what you love. And that ties back into what I was saying earlier, that kind of changes how you see the world. And allows you to see what you love more often, which is a joy in and of itself, even if you never share your images with anyone. But to go out into places and have experiences where you think you are likely to be able to capture something that you love. And then to do your level best to capture it with whichever camera you have along with you at the time. The next strategy that I want to talk about is how to learn your style. And I may go into more depth on this in a future video. But I've come up with a technique that I think is really helpful in finding your style. And that is to include yourself in a community where other photographers are posting their work on a regular basis. And it gives you an opportunity to favorite them or like them or whatever it is that that system calls it. But then there's a place where you can go and browse which images did you like. So Instagram doesn't do this, and at least not to my knowledge. I don't think you can go through and look back at images that you liked on Instagram. So while Instagram does have a lot of amazing photographers on it and is worth your consideration for how to share your own work and to appreciate the work of other people, it doesn't do this, but Flickr does. And I just became familiar with an app called Guru Shots that allows you to do this. So the value in this is that it helps you to learn what your style is. To me, the question of what is style it's the stuff that moves you. So I'm able to know what my style is. I've been shooting long enough that I can just look at my photos and get a pretty good feel for what my style is just looking at my photos. But I think the better way to do it, even now for me, is to look at what photos do I love. As I go through Guru Shots, I will like the photos that really, really move me and speak to me. And I make an effort to go back through every now and again and just browse, and go back and sometimes I'll take a deep look at one of the images that I have liked, that another photographer created, and I'll really, really analyze it and look at what is it that's doing it for me on this particular image. And I used to beat myself up because my photos tend to be dark, and I realized pretty recently that that's because that's my style. That's the stuff that moves me. When I go through my curated favorite photos, which are the ones that really speak to me, well, they're mostly dark images. And I don't know what that says about me personally, from a psychological perspective, but it is what it is. That's my style. That's what I like. So when I shoot these days, I permit myself to shoot in my style, unapologetically. I'm not trying to capture someone else's style. I have a deep appreciation for people who post images that after they've worked them up, they look like a dream sequence. A lot of times it's got a real soft light to it, and it can be real blurry, and seem kind of magical and playful. And I think those are cool. I almost never favorite one of those. Almost never. So if I tried to shoot in that style, it probably wouldn't be very good. It would be a mediocre copy of what someone else was doing, because I don't deeply, deeply, deeply love that style. And it's not to say there's anything wrong with that style at all. It just doesn't happen to be mine. So I think that's a good practice. So that's my advice. I'll link to Flickr and Guru Shots, but I know there are more. Anything that allows you to see which images were your favorites will allow you to find your style. Another good practice for anyone who's wanting to improve their photography is just to try things. Back when I was learning to shoot, it was expensive. If you get a roll of film, and it would give you 24 shots usually, sometimes 36 if you got the really fancy roll of film, but it would give you 24 shots. And what I would do is load up the camera with one roll of film, and then I would go out shooting, and I knew that I could only hit the shutter 24 times, and that was it. And so that only gave me a certain number of tries while I was out there. Now, I was very fortunate. My mom said to me that professional photographers, when they go out and they shoot a roll of 24, are hoping to get one or two usable images. And that was such a freeing thing for me. And so when we would get the film developed, I didn't have my own darkroom, my mom didn't either. So we had to pay to get the film developed. And then when the images would come back a few days later, because that's how it used to be, if I got one or two good ones, I would consider that a successful roll. And the value to that was that it allowed me to try things that weren't necessarily going to work without stressing about it. But the expense was real. I haven't looked into exactly what it would be, but at least in terms of feel for me, I feel like a roll of film cost about what $5 would feel like today, and then it was another probably $3, $4, $5 to get it developed. So that's quite the commitment, really, when you think about it. If you're going to be shooting a lot of shots, that adds up. Digital photography solves this problem 100%. Today, when I go out, I'll hit the shutter 400 times, sometimes. A lot of the shooting that I do these days, I only go out for 5 minutes, and I shoot around my house, and I'll still shoot 80 shots, come back in and look at them, and I might like one of them, and then that's the one I share. So I guess that's an additional, that's a tip I didn't write down, but shoot a lot. The only limit is in the memory that you have on your device. And you can always just delete the ones that don't work. I encourage you to try to save everything, because that's a good learning tool. And one of the things that I plan to do in a later video is to show you some of the images that were before and after the one that I shared, so that you can see how I got to it. But yeah, shoot a lot. Way more than you think you should. But yeah, experiment. Try things. In order to experiment, what you're going to want to do is break the rules. There are rules to photography. For instance, I'm sitting off to the side on the frame here. Like, I'm not directly in the middle, right? That's following a rule. And that rule will be, part of the series that we do here. So in order to break the rules, you got to know the rules, right? So that's what the rest of this series is going to be, is like, what are the rules? But absolutely none of the rules. Maybe you could call it the first rule. The first rule is break the rules. Because an image that intentionally breaks the rules can be very compelling. Very, very compelling. Images that accidentally break the rules because the photographer doesn't know the rules, it's a lot less likely to be an overall powerful image. And, in the end, that's probably the goal, right? We're trying to communicate something, and we want to communicate it in a way that is moving. But once you know the rules, then when you find something that's worth capturing, try it in as many ways as you have the patience for whatever your imagination can bring up. Try it following all the rules, but then break one of them. And then maybe break another one. And then when you go back and you're ready to review your images, whether you do it right there on your phone or if you transfer it to a computer, which is what I do, and I recommend that, then really look at those images, and then you can look at, like, well, what worked? A lot of it won't work. Most of it doesn't work. If all of your images are working, you're not experimenting enough. If I get to a point where, like, 10% of the times I hit the shutter, I have what I consider to be a successful image, I know that I'm not experimenting enough. I know that I'm not trying new things. And that's dangerous for any artist in any medium. You don't want to get caught in a rut because you're too impressed with your own work. Be willing to take bad photos. You don't have to share them with people. It's fine to share them with people, but try stuff. And then, a corollary to that is consider sharing some of the images that you only kind of feel like they worked, because it can surprise you which ones speak to people. For instance, it's not a photo that is as popular today, which is a really interesting topic to me, and maybe I'll make a video about that too. But this dandelion image is one that people have loved over the years. When I was selling prints on Etsy, I guess 14 years ago, 13, it was by far the best seller. It constituted like half of my sales, was just that one image. I didn't think it was anything special when I took it. I remember that day. I remember the whole thing. Like, I was excited about the light, and I ran outside and took, I don't remember, but I'm guessing 10 to 20 captures of it, and that one I thought was cool. But when I posted it, I didn't think it was any better than any of the other dandelion photos I'd ever taken. And it really resonated with people. It was something that people found really powerful. And so you just don't know. You don't know. And honestly, my favorite images, here I'll show one of my most recent favorite images. I think I may do a video on why I like this photo so much, because I wouldn't blame you if you don't like it. Honestly, what I love about it is the way that it breaks rules. That's my favorite thing about it. I also think it conveys a mood well. But this is my favorite image that I've taken in the last few months. And people don't like it. So it's okay to have a different take on which of your images are better than other images. But I think it's valuable. I think it's worth your time to see which images you create that resonate with people that you don't even necessarily think are your best work. The next video in this series, I'm going to start off by discussing the etymology of the word photography. I don't know if you've ever thought about that, but the breakdown of the word photography is drawing with light. And that'll be the topic of our next episode. All right, well, I think that just about does it. Thank you for watching. I hope that you got some value out of your time. Yeah, I guess that's it. I'll see you next time for episode 2, Drawing with Light. Later.